And good morning, Maddie. And good morning, and for some of you, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us for the start of day 4 of IOFM's AP Automation Summit. Before we get into our first presentation, I just want to announce the winners. First and foremost, everybody here is a winner because you've all had access to incredible content over the last several days. Also, everybody that attended yesterday, coffee's on us. You'll receive a $10 Starbucks card via email shortly. You'll also, everybody that attends the session today, including the session you're currently hearing me in, will receive lunch on us, a $25 DoorDash gift card. We also have our daily drawings, just like we would if we were live in person. So yesterday, we had 3 drawings for $150 Amazon gift cards. So Natalie from Curo, Kathy from Save On Foods, and Tiffany from IHC will all be receiving those via email shortly. And then later today, after we close, we will pull 2 winners for $250 Williams and Sonoma gift cards. Thank you so much for joining us. You can tell by the windows behind Russell and Vikram, we are spread out. Russell is in Kentucky, Vikram's in India. Almost 12 hours time difference between the two, and thousands of miles. But what's great is we're able to work together. And this is an issue for every AP department, not just for those that are global, but for those that are even in the same city, for example. You're still got some people working in office, some people working in a home environment, some switching places from time to time. And the need to work efficiently with a distributed workforce has never been more important. And so when we wanted to have this topic, I couldn't think of a better organization than Aavenir, and who regularly works with teammates that are literally on opposite parts of the globe. Russell, what's the biggest challenge in working remotely?
Biggest challenge, it's easy just to say the time zones, right? Vikram and I work lock and step on a lot of projects, a lot of client engagements, and there's always 12 hours between us. So somebody's always adjusting. I see a lot of his evening face, and he sees a lot of my early morning face, and vice versa. That's certainly something that's, it can be a challenge, but it's also an opportunity, right? While I'm sleeping, progress is being made. While they're sleeping, progress is being made. So simply a matter of perspective, Jess.
Absolutely. So with that, take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jess, for the introduction. Thank you, everybody who has joined us today. It really teed it up nicely. The theme of our presentation is largely focused on dealing with the modern climate of the COVID impacted business landscape, and what that has meant for accounts payable teams, and how you can leverage technology to overcome some of these obstacles, as well as some of the traditional obstacles and trends that we've seen in accounts payable. And as Jess mentioned, this is really core to our DNA. We're a very small, very spread out team. So perhaps we might have some valuable insight to share about how you can tackle this and leverage, one another, and leverage technology to be productive. So, the new normal, right? We've all heard this term. It's here. I think it's here to stay, folks. Everybody on this webinar has had to make some kind of serious adjustment to their daily routine, both in business and in their personal lives. Everybody in the world. I venture to say that. Just think, instead of me standing on a stage in a conference hall next to a beach or a casino, I'm in a spare bedroom dialing in, and I've been able to meet all my colleagues' small children and my clients' dogs and cats during our work meetings in the past couple of months, which has actually been really nice. Really every person, every business is trying to figure out how to hit their stride, right? We're still trying to kind of adjust to the circumstances that have been presented to us, and really just keep on keeping on during these unprecedented times. It's not like the old work responsibilities went away. We just have a new set of circumstances that we have to overcome to keep maintaining progress. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit today. And I think all people are sharing some common struggles with the situation, right? A lot of folks being thrust into remote working environments. It's a huge adjustment. A lot of people are probably feeling kind of isolated, and many people thrive on the human interactions that they have at the office, or with their friends at lunch, or whatever it might be. In fact, I would say many people probably tell you their job is dependent on these sorts of human interactions, right? The collaboration that you can only really get sitting around a desk, or the sort of the chemistry that you can only really have in person with somebody. So these are all shared struggles everybody is dealing with, every day, as we embark on this this journey that we're all taking together. What about the AP business function? What specifically about accounts payable? What has this meant here? Well, the rapid decentralization of AP teams and teams in general has had some serious impacts. And again, I mentioned a moment ago, this is just the new stuff that's on our plate. We still have all of the normal, typical responsibilities that accounts payable is looked to manage, right? So I think the decentralization, right? We're no longer in the same room. You can't just go tap your manager on the shoulder with a question like you could have this time a year ago. And we're starting to get some places people are going back to the office. Other places it's still very much on lockdown. I'm in Kentucky, very much on lockdown here. Other places in the world have made a bit more progress. It's all very inconsistent, which that in itself lends itself to a bit more calamity, a bit more unpredictability. And then, thinking specifically about just normal accounts payable circumstances, right? A lot of large corporations might have regional teams, that are distributed across different parts of the globe, different parts of different countries, et cetera. All this is having a big impact on those as well. So an IOFM survey conducted toward AP professionals, just talking about process challenges, pain points, et cetera. 51% of the people say that manual processes are the biggest challenge that drive inefficiency in the workplace, right? Things having to be done manually. Of course, everybody no longer being around one another tends to exacerbate situations like that pretty significantly. Another big piece of feedback was approvals, right? Approval processes specifically for invoices or for exceptional invoices, or, the ones that have, certain circumstances, maybe certain vendors have certain approvals. 30% of the people surveyed identified that as a big bottleneck. And again, when we think about these things, let's think about it through the lens of how not having everybody in the same office anymore can really have a real impact on on those scenarios, right? Manual processes and approvals have been challenges for accounts payable teams as long as accounts payable has been a thing. These aren't new challenges that have just popped up in the past year, but those specific challenges have new dynamics in the fact that we're not sitting next to one another that make them more challenging to manage, that have popped up in the past year. And then, right, there's just the rest of the day job, managing duplicate invoices and duplicate payments and delays in processing and missing early payment discounts and dealing with penalties and managing paper invoices. There's a whole litany, right, of day-to-day responsibilities. Paper invoices is a great example. Like, how are we effectively managing that now in a distributed office environment? Whose responsibility is that to go in and scan the stuff in? And then thinking a layer deeper, like fraudulent. Like, there are certainly people out there, I would hate to think so, but it's probably the case, that might be trying to take advantage of these circumstances, might be trying to poke some holes and chinks in the armor of organizations who are scrambling to deal with these circumstances. And of course, the demand for compliance and regulatory reporting has not shrunk. You don't get off the hook for all of those critical elements, simply because of the new stuff that's on your plate. So I think the theme here is that, the functions of accounts payable as a critical part of the enterprise, paying the bills, right? It's the core of the spending execution has not changed. And the distributed workforce has really just added a huge magnitude of complexity and further exacerbated some of the inefficiencies that were already there, when it comes to just the daily responsibilities. So we think about what next. Well, you really got to try to find a way to respond fast, act fast, to kind of rein this in. Put the right technology in the right places in order to drive efficiency. And we reckon there's three areas of key focus, really in accounts payable, but also within the technology strategy, right? The governance and control over the cash flow, right? Which of course is impacting your available working capital, maintaining healthy relationships across the supply chain. That means getting the bills paid on time, largely from the perspective of accounts payable influence in that realm. And all of this to maintain a competitive edge in the marketplace. And these 3 points kind of like pull this all back to home. We still got work to do, right? Business is still a churn, and everybody is dealing with these situations themselves in their own ways. Every organization is being burdened by these things, but we still have to keep our eyes on the prize, if you will, right? Have to keep keep on keeping on, as I said earlier, and find ways to adjust to make sure that we're still, doing our best to execute strategy. So I think another interesting note, within the industry in the past couple of years, despite all of what's going on with COVID, is that there's been a real shift in the paradigm, an evolution of the accounts payable department, if you will. What was once considered, I think, more of a traditional back office function. We've seen this, especially in finance technology and, across the board. Accounts payable is transforming into more of a strategic business function. It's a very rich source of data, spans the entire enterprise. Everybody's got to pay the bills. Every organization, buys things. Is the actualization of your entire spend strategy, is when those email invoices hit your inbox. So let's shift gears a little bit and discuss how Avenir can be a partner to guide your journey of your accounts payable transformation. So first, just a bit about us, right? Well, we're a small company. You might wonder, who we are, what we do. We work with our clients to deliver source to pay applications, RFP management, contract management, and accounts payable automation. Our 3 products listed at the top are all built on the ServiceNow platform. I don't know if you're familiar with ServiceNow, but they are an organization that is uniquely poised to help drive efficiency and really unite the distributed workforce. And us leveraging them as a platform, it merely means that we have a reliable delivery mechanism for you and your teams, right? So if you have ServiceNow already, great. If you don't have ServiceNow, have no idea what it means, that's fine too. Doesn't really matter. It's just how we deliver our solutions to you. What you get with this is reliability, security, state-of-the-art workflow building tools, reporting and analytics tools, things like that. Additionally, we leverage artificial intelligence, machine learning, some of this cutting edge technology, which we're going to show you in a little bit, to really drive efficiency and automate things, offset some of the very laborious manual processes that 51% of the people surveyed said were a big heartburn as it relates to their function. So when it comes to any sort of big journey, whether it's just implementing a new piece of software that's going to help you do your job a little bit more efficiently, or completely transforming the way that your business operates, the big question is how. How do we go about this? How do we get started? Companies rarely have time and resources to set aside just for planning and thinking through all these things. And that's where, having a reliable partner with good industry and good domain expertise comes into play, because, what we want to do is leverage our domain knowledge, present you kind of a ready-made roadmap that can help guide, serve as a baseline for how to navigate something like a transformation of your accounts payable organization. So what we've got here is really just kind of a 4-step transformation journey. None of these individual steps on the diagram are small undertakings, but you can think about this as a spectrum of maturity. Consider where you're at today, and you can really see what the next logical step in the sequence is. And each of these steps is designed to bring in definite measurable value and the degree of efficiency gains by the time you get done with it, right? So it's all about progressive value along the way. And it's really designed in a way that's going to transform the accounts payable departments, from kind of that operational role into a strategic player in the organization. So, starting with the digitization of your invoice processing, right? This is really at the core of it. This is something that a lot of AP staff, and all the research that we've done, all the customers that we have, there's a lot of painful hours just, managing incoming invoices, collecting data, extracting data from them. If there are invoices that are being sent via paper, that's an entire, extra set of steps to get them into a consistent format. So with this step, we're really just trying to digitize the entire process and leave your AP staff with a lot more time on hand so they can start to focus that energy on, more strategic and pressing matters. So digitization is really at the core of the transformative framework that we would propose here. The second step, we're taking this a step higher, right? Now that everything has been digitized, we want to start to automate some of the invoice processing, matching it, invoice data with the purchase order data, matching invoice data with goods receipts data, right? These are standard practices for almost all of your incoming bills, right? A lot of organizations mandate that there has to be a purchase order for certain types of expenses and purchases. And, when the bill comes in, you get a lot of this stuff is traditionally done very manually. This is also where we can include a certain degree of vendor validation to ensure that the invoice is valid. This reduces opportunity for fraud. This reduces exposure to risk at the same time as reducing the manual, laborious efforts that nobody likes, right? Nobody ever wants to become an administrative paper pushing. I'm no different in my role. It's those are the parts of the job that we find tedious. Any way that we can offset those and let us use our strategic brains more than kind of our autopilot when it comes to this stuff, it's better for the worker, it's better for the clerk, it's better for the organization as well, because reducing that exposure to risk, increasing the time that people have to focus on more more things. The third step, we're really beginning to extend the impact across the organization, right? We've got the digitized process, and we've really automated a lot of the manual labor intensive items that go into accounts payable invoice processing. So now we're connecting different systems together, updating key information across systems, invoice hitting an inbox, extracting the data, comparing it to the purchase order and the goods receipt based on certain criteria. Maybe it needs to get approved by somebody else. And then once all of that is done, it can transfer smoothly into the GL system, trigger off an ACH process or cutting a check, whatever it might be. This is really the nirvana state when it comes to just managing the avalanche that is a lot of organizations' invoice management, right? Best of breed companies are touchless invoice posting 75% of their invoice in almost entirely automated fashion. We're going to talk about some of the steps you can take to get there, some of the things you can measure today to figure out where you're at, how far away this is, and also how real this could be if we invest a bit of time together. And then the fourth and final step here, is all about data. I think data is the oil of the 21st century. It's what really drives our economies. It's what drives our industries. It's really what drives best of breed organizations' decision-making processes as well. Once you've got just, granular visibility and access to rich information about all of the bills you're paying, well, suddenly the categorization of expenses, the forecasting of next year's needs, all of those things start to be really supported by real life information. Not to mention, bottlenecks in the process, ways that you can become more efficient. The end nirvana state for all of this, really, it's like we said a couple of moments ago, is transforming the AP department into a rich source of enterprise-wide information that spans the whole company. So next big question, we've kind of talked a bit about how we might embark on a journey. Is the juice going to be worth the squeeze, right? Like, how do we really, understand the effort that goes into this? And is it going to be worth us committing all the time and resources? How do we measure success? What's the final outcome going to look like? Well, these are all very important questions, right? Here are some important metrics you can just start to think about. And we're happy to distribute this information. I'm pretty sure Jess will probably, flick these slides across to everybody who's participating. So if you're trying to feverishly take notes, I wouldn't bother. But really just a couple of key, I think, key performance indicators to consider about your invoice efficiency, right? Like, what is the processing cost per invoice, right? How much does it actually cost you from the time you get a bill till the time it's paid? What's your internal cost for that processing effort? Your invoice lead time, right? From the time it goes in the door till the time it's paid. How long does that actually take you? How many invoices are being processed per accounts payable clerk, right? These are all very clear, easy to measure benchmarks once you have the right information. And success in this transformative journey, more or less is going to be measured as a reduction in some of these statistics, right? And if you look at the right side column versus the left side, you can see that top performing companies are they're processing 4 times as many bills with the same amount of people in a third of the time at a third of the cost, right? So if you think about that, just kind of extrapolate just those 3 metrics, 4 times as efficient, a third of the cost, and a third of the time. That's really heavy hitting impact. That can be a really just cornerstones in a cost justification or a business plan for executing something like this. It's steep. Not many places you see like increase the efficiency by 4 and decrease the time and cost by 2. It's very rare to find such a ripe opportunity for efficiency gains and return on investment as you might see here. And it's really the power of the modern technology that enables these sorts of outcomes to even be available. So the final big question, really, how does this all work? So are really 3 key elements of our delivery that enable us to deliver these kinds of results. The first is AI technology, right? We leverage cutting edge, really modern AI technology components that really just completely automates the entire receipt of an invoice from a supplier, extracting the data from that invoice, creating a record. This is something that's usually done in Microsoft Excel, somebody just, looking at one screen, typing onto another, checking against another. Automating all of that with modern technology components is really step 1. The second component is leveraging digital workflows. Digital workflows in the technology world is it's as popular a buzzword as there exists these days. And this is all about, this is really the secret sauce for how we're able to take this AP transformation journey and apply it to the modern distributed workforce challenges that we were talking about earlier. Having tools in place that are able to connect people to their roles and responsibility within specific business processes digitally, right? Driving automation. Well, once this part of the process is done, it needs to land in this person's inbox. Having a system that drives all of that seamlessly really help shrink the distance in between us. And it's a critical element. Workflows and automation, a critical element of how the real heavy hitting value can be delivered. And the third element, AI and digital workflows. The third element is the platform that we're built on, which is ServiceNow. It's a very robust, scalable, and secure platforms designed to be able to be configured, to meet your organization's needs in any business function. That's very important. Every company has their own flavor of how they do things, whether it's processing certain types of bills or charging back to certain business units or matching bills against certain records. Our platform by design is meant to be tailored to order, so we can wrap your business processes into the platform of record to really get the maximum results that you can achieve from automation and from some of the other things that we've discussed. So at this point, I'm going to talk just a bit about kind of a use case, right? I want to take, we've had a lot of discussion about, the different opportunities for process improvement and different challenges that are going on in the market today and last year and, in general with accounts payable. So let's talk a bit about an organization, just a kind of a case study, if you will. And then let's get into a software demonstration so we can show you some of this stuff in action, let you actually see how these things work visually. So the firm is, it's a fictional firm that supplies IT hardware, managed services. It's a multinational organization, right? They grew via, aggressive mergers. So they've got presence in a bunch of different countries, operating somewhat autonomously. And what this creates in many cases that we've seen is kind of these disparate siloed accounts payable functions across the globe, very decentralized. There's certainly no source of, like information or reporting across the board, but even like, the firm AP inbox for Canada might be different for here in the States, which might be different for, Eastern Europe. So they just have more or less operating like separate autonomous little parts of the organization, and obviously this creates fragmented pictures of the organization, limitations with the data. It also creates inefficiencies. So as companies continue to grow, you might come to this realization, right? Like business is good, but I know we're hurting ourselves, right? I know we're leaving money on the table. We're leaking revenue. I just don't know how. I know that this process isn't efficient. Don't know how to remedy it. Don't know what the next steps are in the process. These are things that our clients come to us and tell us, we need to find a way to make this more seamless. We need to find a way to harness more clear, comprehensive information, coming through these accounts payable processes. And we really just would love some insight into how we might be able to do that. So, what we're able to do to work with you is to, build a business case, right? Go through some of the discussions that we have had today and, really automating up to 80% of the hands-on, kind of the swivel chair stuff that you're doing today as depicted in that bottom left picture, right? Getting a lot of that stuff, operated by kind of a seamless moving engine, creating standardization at the global level can also create standardization of the information that you're getting from the global operations, reducing transactional operational costs. These are just some of the positive outcomes that organizations are able to achieve. So at this point, I think what I would like to do is shift gears, and I will pass the reins over, in fact, to my comrade, Vikram, who is going to give a demonstration of the Aavenir solution, kind of live in action, so we can, see how this thing operates, based on some of the foundational framework we've discussed today. So, Vikram, I'm going to stop my share and pass it over to you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Russell. And I need to, get the screen sharing access. Okay. Perfect. And let me say that, while you were doing that amazing slide deck presentation, there were a lot of, questions we got on the chat, asking a lot of interesting questions. So that's really interesting. I was really excited answering some of those questions. But now, as I was telling someone, it's time for me to actually show you a glimpse of what this product is like, how it works. So yeah, okay, here it is. So I hope you all can see my screen. If Russell, if you can please confirm that, and if I'm loud and clear. All right.
Yes, sir. Loud and clear and visible.
Thank you. So just quick introduction. I'm Vikram. I run global pre-sales at Aavenir. I've been here in the accounts payable, source to pay industry over 10 years now, 22 years in technology. And I'm today really excited to be here, talk about the value that we can bring to you, kind of corroborate upon what Russell has just talked about, given a great presentation on the key challenges that everyone is facing today because of the situation and the circumstances that we all are in today. The pandemic has spread across the world. It has impacted everyone, countries, companies, people. Countries have suffered because economies are down. Companies have suffered because revenues are down. Stocks are down. I am an investor myself, so I know that really well. People have suffered, because people have been forced to stay inside their homes, and especially people like me who love traveling a lot. We just can't do that anymore, So, and what comes with that, along with that, is now that you're all staying inside your homes. Earlier, when you were all co-located under an office, and if you had ever thought about having a tool for AP automation, but kind of didn't pursue it because you just thought, okay, let's take it up sometime later on. Well, that was fine because you were still within the same co-located office space, and when an invoice comes in from a supplier, it has to go through a certain workflow where someone has to receive the invoice, somebody has to type in the invoice record in some system of record, somebody has to verify it with the PO, with the GRNs, with the vendors. And if you just needed to have, if that person was someone else other than you, you still had the luxury of just getting up and walking over to that person a couple of desks away and tap on the person's shoulder. Hey, can you just get that? I need that, done really fast. Yeah, you could do that. Well, you don't have that luxury today. And because you don't have that luxury today, having an automation for AP, accounts payable, and invoice processing is no more an option that you can push into, a slightly distant future. You really need it today. But what happens is, when you receive an invoice from a supplier by an email, somebody has to look at that email. Somebody has to open that attachment, look at that information manually, key in the information, create an invoice record somewhere in some system that's used today as a system of record. Then you have to match that invoice with PO, with GRN. You need to validate that with whether it's from a genuine vendor, so that someone just doesn't slip in an unnoticed invoice and you end up making a payment, losing out your money and cash flow. Somebody has to approve that, and then somebody has to make a payment based upon that invoice. That's a workflow. Now, with people located in different time zones, different parts of the world, what you really need is a digitized workflow, a digital workflow. And you need to be able to even see how well healthy that workflow is. And so when you log in to Aavenir, as you can see, I've right now logged into Aavenir. You can't miss it because right on top, you see this, what I like to call, although it's called the invoices by status, I like to call this a loading graph, because what it's really showing you is a distribution of all invoices that are currently going through various stages of the processing workflow, how well it's distributed across the various different stages. And really speaking, if you're an AP manager or someone in the AP organization who's responsible to ensure smooth functioning of that entire end-to-end process, that this is really important for you, because what you really want to look for in this graph here is that these bars that you see are the blue bar, the green bar, the yellow orange bar, they should all be more or less of the same height, or the same level, same height actually, because that indicates that all your invoices are flowing through the different stages and no one stage is really getting overloaded. For example, if let's say the person who approves invoices is maybe not available or not well, or whatever the reason, you'll find invoices piling up in the approval stage, and this green bar will start shooting up. And when you see a bar shooting up, that gives you an instant cue, an instant visibility into the fact that there is some problem in your workflow. There is a bottleneck somewhere. That bottleneck could be a staffing issue. That bottleneck could be an area where you need to bring in some process automation. There could be multiple reasons why there's a bottleneck, but you will never be able to solve a bottleneck even if you just don't know that a bottleneck exists. Without this digital workflow and without this graph, you would never know that there is a bottleneck unless someone actually comes and tells you, hey, if a supplier for example, comes and tells, you know what, we didn't yet receive our invoice payment, and when many suppliers are calling your email, that's when you realize, oh, there is something wrong, something is slowing it down. And that's why this graph is very essential for all of you to make sure that your workflow, your entire end-to-end digital workflow through which your invoice goes from stage to stage, is streamlined, efficient, and ultimately this is connecting all your people, no matter where they are located in the world, which time zone they are located in. If I have to approve an invoice, I'm located in India, I'll see it in my inbox right here that these are the invoices I need to approve. I can look at it and approve. That's it. So that's a very streamlined workflow. Now, we've talked a lot about this digital workflow, and no matter how well it does, of course, a fantastic job of connecting the processes together, connecting the people together, blurring out the lines of geographical distance. You still also want to be able to accelerate these processes. You can have a workflow, but you can have invoices going through that workflow really slow, at a slow pace. But that's not, again, good. You also want a workflow that's fast. You want the invoices to move through the stages really fast. And what that means is the key strategic stages of this workflow need to have certain technology that helps accelerate that particular activity. And for example, let's look at this stage. The first stage in the workflow is where your invoices are created. Right now you see 14 invoices in there. How are these invoices created? Pretty much like how you should do earlier, but what we've done here is, earlier you would monitor inboxes for incoming supplier emails that have an invoice that is attached. So you would double click the attachment, look at the invoice information, manually type in information. We're just talking about one invoice here. I'm sure you work with 10, 50, 100 invoices a day, and there are a bunch of you. It's again not just one person. That's countless number of painful hours that you've just spent doing mundane routine work. We've got to accelerate that, but that's just not it. There's other things. You also want to ensure that it's from a valid, genuine vendor to prevent fraud. You also want to ensure that it's matching with the information in the purchase order. You also want to ensure that it's matching with the quantities in the goods receipts note. All of that requires eyeballing across multiple different records, multiple different artifacts, sheets, and often these are not done by just one person. And again, when we talk about not being done by one person, we are again coming back to that same point of people being distributed across time zones. So what we've done is we've completely taken this part off. You are no longer going to sit and monitor inboxes with Aavenir installed. Aavenir does that job for you. Aavenir is going to sit and monitor your inboxes. When an email comes in from a supplier, Aavenir has intelligence to detect that email. Aavenir is going to open that email. Aavenir is going to open the invoice attachment. It's going to kick in its cutting edge AI algorithms and models and read through that invoice, and it will create the record for you. That was in fact a question that somebody just asked me even on the chat while Russell was doing the presentations. So you are no longer doing all of that. You can just imagine all of those painful hours completely knocked off. And where do you then see it? So when you log in, this is your landing page. So you've logged, right now I've logged in as Rohit. I land on the dashboard here. I see a very healthy workflow. And when I scroll down, here's where I see all incoming invoices. By the way, so we categorize all incoming invoices for you as PO invoices and non-PO invoices. And let me tell you, one of the most recent surveys conducted by IOFM actually identified this classification as one of the top metrics every AP team wants to know. What are your PO invoices and what are your non-PO invoices? So this is done by our artificial intelligence algorithms. If it finds a PO number on the invoice, it'll categorize it as a PO invoice. Otherwise, it'll categorize it as non-PO invoice. So, by the way, this is your new inbox. You're no longer looking at email. So when you log in, start of the day, early in the morning, you get a cup of coffee, you're just logging into Aavenir Invoiceflow. You scroll down here, I see invoice number 421. Let's pick this up. And what I'm going to see is a really user-friendly, intuitive side-by-side view. It's a really cool view that you're seeing here. You know, one of the things you also want to work with really good-looking user interfaces. So on the right-hand side, you can actually see the invoice that was attached with the email, which Aavenir has picked up for you. And on the right-hand side, you can actually see the invoice record that Aavenir has created for you. And if you look at this, it's all done by artificial intelligence. The invoice number 1011 matches with 1011, the same invoice number here. You've got the invoice date, which is 15th of September. And if you see on the right-hand side, it says 15th of September. Then if you look at the bottom of this, right here, if you can see where my cursor is, that's the purchase number. The purchase number got picked up and it's planted right here on the left-hand side. And let me also show you something very important. It's picked up the vendor, Dell Inc. It's picked up. This is where it puts it in, it plants it here. And it's also validated with your vendor database. Let me tell you, this is what our AI picked up. This is what has come in from your existing vendor master, vendor information. So it has matched. And because it has matched, it shows a blue tick mark here, which means this is a genuine vendor. So there is no question of a fraud. You have almost completely eliminated that concern. And by the way, you did nothing so far. All that you did is, logged in, picked up one invoice and looked at, hey, okay, let's look at what, Aavenir has done, what AI has done. The only thing is it shows you this, it shows you needs attention because this is what AI has extracted. And let's face it, AI is never going to be 100% accurate. So it's just telling you to verify if everything is fine. If not, you can just go ahead and make that change. By the way, let me scroll down and show you. It also picks up the payment terms, the invoice total, and it also picks up the line items. So in this case, there's one line item that is part of this invoice. If you look at the invoice here, there's one line item. So you can just imagine how much of countless manual hours this has already saved you. The next stage in this workflow is once this invoice is created and you have verified all of this, you want to, let's say, move it through the workflow. So you want to suppose send it for approval, which in this case is the next stage. And by the way, let me also add here that this workflow can be completely tailored to suit the workflow that you use in your organization. So when I submit this for approval, you will notice two additional things happening, which is again a big source of manual labor, manual time that you spend. Number one, matching with a purchase order. Number two, matching with a GRN. This is again not easy. It's it's easy, but it's not it's not efficient. It's tedious. Okay, and we're not talking about one invoice. So when I move it through the workflow, all I did was I clicked that next button over there that said send for approval. Look what's happened. You can see it coming on your screen just right there. It's actually gone and picked up an existing PO from your PO master, and you can see that they have matched, and that's why you see a blue tick mark there. So every information here was matched with information in the PO. So it's a PO match, and it's also gone and picked up GRN's good receipts note, and it's found that it's matching with information on this invoice, and so you see the blue tick mark there. So we've just given you a completely automated way of ingesting invoices, verifying the authenticity of the vendor, verifying that it's accurate in terms of what was contained in the PO and the GRN, all of that. with really no effort from you, leaving you so much more time to get to the strategic stuff that Russell was actually talking about. And now this has gone in for approval. I'm not the approver, somebody else is the approver. Okay, that somebody is probably sitting right now in Kentucky. And that's the person, my colleague here, Russell. He's my, finance approver. So he's going to get a notification. He's going to be able to approve this. Click of a button. You don't again need to type in a lengthy email saying, hey, I approve this or I don't approve this. Nothing. Just a click of a button, and I'm sure Russell would have already approved my invoice for me. Imagine that I just stepped out, went for lunch, and now came back and logged in again, and there you go. It's now approved. So in just very little amount of time, we actually progressed this invoice from created till approved. And now we can actually set this for payment, because the only thing left is now to request a payment. And when we actually do that, this will then go and notify the right people. Excuse me. In the ideal world, it would actually connect to your GL systems, your finance systems. So it just opens up, by the way, a simple email composer where you can, attach this invoice attachment, and you don't need to type in anything here. We just give you ready-made template, saving you again a lot of time. So here's a payment request template. So it'll fill up your subject, fill up the body. You can of course make some edits here if you wish to, but really it's just saves you a lot of time. Don't need to do anything. And where's my send button? Right here. And this invoice has now gone from all the way from when it was received, when the supplier sent it, all the way through your ERP into your organization where someone's going to make that payment. And we've just completed one entire invoice end-to-end processing and life cycle with automated creation, matching, eliminating fraud, all of that, and saved you countless hours of FTE time. With that, there's just one thing that I really want to talk about before I finally hand it over again to Russell. So in addition to all of these workflows, we also give you some really amazing insights. And as Russell said, you also want to get strategic. Everyone wants to, do things that's important for the organization today. And we give you key metrics and information. Again, these are metrics which have been identified by a survey conducted by IOFM as some of the top metrics that every AP team wants. Duplicate invoices. Well, because you're using Aavenir, you've got only 10 duplicate invoices, and it's telling you those invoices there. So you're not going to make duplicate payments. Invoice amounts processed per quarter. So you can see here there's suddenly a slightly increased payments that you're making here. So you have complete visibility into how you're spending your working capital across these quarters. How much time, how efficient is your team, no matter where they are, distributed workforce, but these are the number of invoices each member of your team is able to process over a quarter. We could also show you over a year or over half a year. Number of invoices paid on time. So we do capture the date of payment, and the invoice date is also captured. So we tell you how many invoices you're paying on time. Very useful again if you really want to capitalize on early payment discounts from suppliers. Non-PO invoices versus PO invoices, we give you that distribution of how well you're doing, and you obviously want more of PO invoices to be able to have better control over and better governance over your working capital, your cash flow, and just in general do a better job at managing your overall finances in your organization. And of course, how efficient is your team doing, even though they are spread across the world? Here's how much time it takes. It takes approximately 4 days in this company that I'm showing you to get an invoice from the initial draft created stage to the approved stage. And then from approved to paid, it takes about 6 days. The shorter this time, the more efficient is your end-to-end invoice processing. So in a nutshell, just to summarize, with all of this, we are giving you digital workflows to streamline and connect people and processes. We're giving you automation in terms of automatic invoice extraction, creating the records, validating your vendors to prevent fraudulent invoices, matching with PO and GRNs, all of that to accelerate that workflow. Like I said, you don't just want a workflow, you want an accelerated workflow. And at the end, We are giving you some of the top metrics that you really want to look at so that you know how well you are performing as an AP team, as an AP organization. What's the strategic value you bring to the organization? But with that, I think I've actually taken a lot more time than I thought I wanted to, but I'd like to hand over to my friend and colleague, Russell.
Thanks, Vikram. Man, you brought the energy today. I am fired up. Really appreciate the presentation. Yep, so I'm going to take back control. Just offer some closing thoughts. Really appreciate the great presentation, Vikram, and I can see you've done some work tailoring a couple of dashboards to suit the audience today. Thank you for the additional effort in making this one count. I hope everybody, the questions were absolutely firing off, by the way. I hope everybody enjoyed the demonstration and, got a good sense of, what our solution looks like and what it feels like. And, again, let's tie it back, right? These are the things that, we reckon you guys are most worried about, right? Managing cash flow, getting the bills paid on time. We're a vendor. You know what vendors love? They love getting their bills paid on time. So, it's a great way to maintain that relationship, even during these tumultuous times. Competitive edge in the market, any sort of systems that you're using to dramatically improve the efficiency of any of your critical functions in the organization is going to help you maintain that competitive edge. So what next, right? We've kind of given you, some thoughts of ours about the industry, some perspectives, a little bit of, consultation. So how do we get started, right? How do we make this stuff happen? Well, I think a great next step would be, getting in touch with us. We love to talk, as I'm sure you've gathered by now, and we'd love to, to talk to you about some of your specific goals, about some of your specific needs, about some of your systems, and a couple of topics that we can touch on, just to give you a sense of what the conversation might look like. How many invoices are y'all processing today? Some of our customers are doing a couple of hundred a month. Some of our customers are doing, 5,000 to 6,000 a month, right? So there's a wide range here, and the right solution, needs to be dialed in based on the volume and based on the specifics, right? What's your purchase order process look like? Some companies do everything with a purchase order. Some do everything without. Most fall somewhere in between. How is that managed? These are just topics that you can think about and that we can discuss in more detail during our first conversation, to help us really give you a clear picture of what the path forward might look like. How is your workforce distributed? How many people do you have working on this kind of stuff? What do your approvals and dependencies look like? Do you have special departmental approval processes or geographic approval processes? Have you got, one person tirelessly managing all of this? Have you got a team of 5 people in each country? Tell us a little bit about the makeup of your organization. All this information is just going to help us right size a solution that's going to make sense for you and really deliver impact and value in the places that you feel that you want impact and value. And additionally, what are the things that you're measuring today? Very, very often the answer is nothing. Like, what's late, what's not late, right? And that's perfectly fine. So don't be bashful about it. But, if you are measuring stuff, let's talk about it. Or, more importantly, what are the insights you would like to be gathering? What do you wish you were measuring today about your accounts payable organization, right? So, these are just 4 topics that we can spend 30 minutes discussing together at your convenience. That will give us a great, better understanding of one another. It'll help us give you a little bit of guidance on what the next steps could look like. We are, experts at engaging with IT and building business cases and putting together ROI assessments and cost justifications. So, if this is something that has struck you as intriguing, we are certainly happy to take the journey with you. No strings attached. So give us a jingle. And additionally, come by our website. We've got a lot of great resources, ROI calculators and buying checklists and RFP templates, really the starter kit, right? The things, if you're really thinking about taking the journey with a vendor, we've got some great information out there that's going to help you think about, where are we at today? What do we need to do to get started? I tell you what's not fun, putting together an RFP. So we've got some resources for you there as well. that you can use to, to get started free of charge. Again, no strings attached. We want to provide you with valuable materials and resources, and also insights. We've got a team full of intelligent people that like to write, like to talk, and we produce a lot of content. So please do come by. With that, I will open it up for Q&A. I'm going to leave mine and Vikram's contact information here for a moment, but trust me, you're not going to have any trouble getting in touch with us after this. I'm also going to scroll back to the KPI slide. I've actually had a request that we throw that back onto the screen. I guess a couple of folks wanted to have another look at that to put the framework for some questions in place. So I will scroll back to that in just a moment. Jess, I don't know. I'm not sure how we're going to moderate the Q&A session. I'll let you provide some guidance there.
Yeah, I'll let me start throwing questions at you. So what I'd start with is, I just want to echo one point. It was actually the very first thing you said, Russell, which is that the distributed workforce is here to stay. And in some ways, it has something to do with COVID, right? We're in this situation currently where some of us are home, some of us are not, and in a physical office. But I think there's something else that's happening that's going to make this not a short-lived thing, right? It's not a matter of waiting until there's a vaccine and we return to normal, and therefore the idea of distributed workforce is no longer an issue. Here's what I'm seeing, and here's what we're seeing from our members. Millennials expect now to be able to work from home. Not a question. And so as you're hiring now, or as you replace the Gen Xers that are going to retire over the next several years, you're going to be adding people to the workforce that expect the work-life flexibility of working from home. So that's first and foremost. The second thing we're starting to see is, as managers have gained experience and comfort in managing remote teams, we're now seeing folks, say in New York City, looking where cost of living is incredibly high, looking to other geographic markets, saying we may never be in the same office together, and if we aren't, why do I need to hire someone at twice the salary just to be working from home within 5 miles of me? I'd rather hire someone, say, in Kentucky, where cost of living is a whole lot lower, right? And so you have that opportunity. The other place where we're seeing opportunities are folks in smaller markets, say Kentucky, where they're saying, you know what, the talent pool here may be limited. I can now expand the talent pool nationwide or globally to find the best person to hire. And all of that requires the ability to manage and work with the distributed workforce. So I think the trends we're seeing now are really just the beginning of what our workforces are going to look like. With that,
I'd love to throw a point at you, Jess, because I think you made a really great point. I read a statistic: 75% of the workforce by 2025 is going to be millennial-aged people. So you're right on the money. And if you think as an organization that you're going to tell them, "Hey, time to go back to the office and sit in the cubicle," it's unrealistic. Right. And so finding ways to get in front of that. And, organizations who have responded well to this stuff, what they've found, hey, we're still getting business done. This hasn't sunk our ship. And wait a second, we have millions of dollars of travel and expense budget that suddenly didn't get spent that can go elsewhere, right? So there is a big shift in paradigm, and it might have been accelerated by the circumstances with COVID, but it's not entirely because of them, and it's certainly not going to go away once we get over this hump, right? I think businesses are realizing that there are other ways of doing things that might be more efficient, less costly, more effective, and give them opportunities to different resources in different areas of the world, like you were just saying. It's a great point.
Absolutely. I think one of the other things is we're seeing just weather related. We're approaching winter in the States. We had a shout out from someone in Canada. When there's bad weather or you've got a long commute, there's no longer a reason why you have to come to the office every day, right? And that's not going to change. There's always going to be snow. There's always going to be icy roads. There's going to be people with extra long commutes. And I don't think any AP manager can ever look in their employees' eyes again and say, you have to come into the office. We know they don't have to. You can manage them remotely. There's a great opportunity. We've got just 1 minute, so I'm just going to pick up where the last question that's come up, because I got to tell you, Russell and Vikram, you've been working really well in answering the questions as they've come in. So what I'd suggest, rather than repeating the Q&A, let's take the questions that have come in since your presentation that you were able to answer while the other was speaking. We have a question from Crystal about AP measures. So does this have other analytics that can be used for department budgeting beyond the examples you showed?
Yeah, and actually, I'll take that. And I was actually just typing in a response to that, but yeah, it's better to, just talk about that. Yeah, absolutely. Because we are an invoice processing system, we know all the information about all invoices, the total expenditure that your organization is incurring monthly, quarterly, annually. So we have the actuals part of the information. Now, if that can, of course, be used for your forecast and budgeting. And in fact, if you already have your pre-planned budgets, which you probably use either the same system or the same platform, or if you have used it in any other system where you manage your budgeting, we could combine that information with the actuals information from our system and give you that planned versus actuals kind of view, which will really help you understand whether you're meeting your spend goals or whether you're exceeding it or whether you're way below it. So I mean, there's a lot of things we can actually do there. I'm just giving you just a small glimpse into the art of the possibility. Of course, we'd really like to have a more detailed conversation with you to understand exactly what your use cases are. We'd be happy to show you a much more tailored, customized demonstration to you.
Okay. Well, this has been absolutely wonderful. I greatly appreciate Vikram, you working late on a Friday night, and Russell, your insights have been fantastic. I think this is an exciting offering and exactly the kind of time at exactly the right time that folks are dealing with the distributed workforce now and into the future. With that, we've got a small break, and then our next session begins in just a few minutes. Thanks a lot for joining us, everybody.
Thank you, Jess, very much. Thank you for the IOFM team and for all the people who attended. Really appreciate your time today. Have a great weekend.
Great.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.